Hey, gang, this is Bill Storm, and welcome to the I Can podcast. Today, I am proud to have my good friend, Kim Hernandez, with us. And she has written a new book, and it's called Your Time Is Now. So I'm super excited to have a conversation with her so she can tell you what it's all about. So, Kim, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, talk to me a little bit about the book. Who is the book for? Who did you write this book for?
I wrote this book for women with the hopes of inspiring them to believe in themselves, to build confidence in themselves, and to see their own capabilities of overcoming difficulties. So
Okay,
that's my target.
So talk to me a little bit more about difficulties. What was the catalyst behind this? What's your backstory behind this? Because usually when a book is written like this, there's something that's gone on in life that has dramatically made an impact on your life, and you want to be able to share it with other people.
Right. The catalyst for me was going through a divorce where I lost everything. And I mean, like everything in one fell swoop, it was all gone. And then having to figure out fairly quickly how I was going to overcome this and start to rebuild my life. I had no idea how I was going to do that or even what it looked like. So that was my starting point for this.
Okay, so that is more typical than not these days. I think there's a lot of situations where people go through divorce, and sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's not as nice as it could be, and one person ends up getting the short end of the stick. In this case, you can share as much as you'd like to about this, but for someone who is listening to this or reading this, tell us a little bit about the backstory and what was where did it put you emotionally, and what kind of transpired so people can really feel this and identify with your message.
Okay. And like you said, this is more common than I think I was aware of. And I'm sure that many other people are aware of, because as you go through something that's either traumatic or life-changing or a difficult situation, you tend to hear other people, they come into your life and they say, oh my God, I'm going through the same thing. Or I totally can relate. This has happened to me. You start to hear all these stories of other people. And just exactly like you said, I started saying, oh my goodness, this happens more often than not, and women are getting the short end of the stick. So my goal is instead of telling them to approach it in one way, my goal to deal with women that are going through similar circumstances as myself that I went through is to how to strengthen yourself so you are prepared, because let's face it, we can't control what happens a lot of times in our lives or circumstances. So how do you get yourself to a point to where you're strong enough to where when things come at you, you can rise up quickly and get right through it. As far as my backstory that started this whole thing, I had what many people would say was the perfect life. Okay, I had a beautiful home, 4 beautiful children. I was married to my high school sweetheart. We had started dating each other at 16 years old. And then throughout the years, we had our kids, and we built 2 very successful businesses together. And within our community, these businesses were, they were pretty prominent and well-known throughout the community. So as we had gone through, and when divorce was happening, I found myself in almost a helpless situation. And I don't like using that word, but I'm going to use it because that's where I felt. I felt I was in this hole of just, this was helpless. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of here. At the end of the whole thing, I had lost my home. Not only you lose a marriage, lose my home. My children were kind of getting scattered. I'd lost a sibling in the process of that. The 2 businesses that were my source of income, I lost my businesses. I didn't have a car. I had to file bankruptcy, so I lost my credit. I had no money at the end of this. And then to kind of top it off, I ended up being fired from the businesses that I lost, which was a really strange, odd situation that I still don't quite know the inner workings of that. But then I found myself with like no form of income to be able to support myself or my children. And that is on top of everything of losing a marriage and your family kind of getting broken up, but no income to be able to support yourself or feed your kids is terrifying. There was a moment, I remember this clearly. My youngest son, I was in the kitchen doing something, and he walked over to me and he said, "Mom, can I have something to eat? I'm hungry." And I just looked at him and kind of shook my head, and I felt terrible. And I said, "Hey, buddy, I got toast. That's about it." And I was like, I got to do something. Like, I cannot feel like this anymore. So that's when I started kind of figuring out what I was going to do to get out of this hole I was in, because it was not a place that I wanted to be. You get into, when you go through difficult situations, survival mode, right? So that kind of kicks in, and that's not a space that you want to live in very long. Okay. That survival mode, maybe for a short period of time, but you don't want to stay there. You don't want to be having that be your operating system for a length of time. And I found that I was in this survival mode of just, how am I going to get to the next day? How am I going to, get the groceries that I need on just this, how much money's in my checkbook? Okay, I've got like $20 to feed everybody for, an extended period of time. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay rent? I don't have a job. I don't have income. What am I going to do? So that was a really, really, it was eye-opening. It was a difficult situation. And at the same time, though, it connected me with other women that were going through similar circumstances. So it wasn't an all bad thing, but, because I was able to make new friendships and new connections with other people, but it was difficult for that time.
What's interesting is any conversations that I've had with you, you never went to the negative. And a lot of people do that. They instantly just start, bashing the other person, which, you may have every right to do, but you've never done that. And I think that's kind of interesting. The other thing that's interesting is for people that don't know you, I mean, I've known you since you had first started dating, right back when you were, a teenager. So I know what that life looked like for you, and the atmosphere that you were in was very, seemingly very positive. I mean, everything about you exuded, confidence and positivity and all of those other great things. So when people are listening to this or they're reading this, they need to understand that, to all of a sudden lose it all, that is where this becomes most impressive, is because you have to basically dig down into your soul to test whether or not, your belief systems in that I can type attitude, to be able to say my time is now, right? I don't need to rely on anyone else to be me or to become the best version of me or to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. I can do this. And I think that's, I think that's a testament to you. But seriously, I mean, for you to lose everything, I mean, if you lost your home, a sibling, all sorts of income, everything that a lot of people would say would define you as who you are and what your life is like, and all of a sudden to have that be taken away from you, that's devastating. I mean, that's like, hitting the bottom and seeing, are you going to be able to get back up or not?
Right. I definitely hit the bottom pretty hard. And the one thing that I did do, and I made sure I did, and it sounds so trivial when I say it to people, but there were 3 things like I did every day. Okay. Number 1, I got out of bed, because there are so many people that you get into a place of difficulty and you don't want to get out of bed. So I got out of bed, I took a shower, and I ate. I made sure that those 3 things I did every day to take care of myself. And whether or not I knew from that point what was going to happen, I made sure that I did that every day. I got up, so I started my day. I got myself ready, and I made sure that I nourished myself, because what I didn't want to do was add fuel to the fire. right? By not taking care of myself. Now it's even harder, and I don't have the energy, and I didn't have the energy. So let's face it, when you go through time periods of difficulty, you don't feel like doing some things. You don't feel like it. But I couldn't let that overcome me, because I knew I was in control of that. That I can control. I can control myself. I could not control my external environment, but I can do myself. So I made sure that every day I started, I was like, I call it get out of the gate, because every day everybody starts at the same place, right? We all wake up. So you wake up, your day starts, and we're all like at the starting gate. And one thing that you can do to help move things is get out of the gate. And I was just, every day I did it. I didn't know what was going to happen, where I was going, but I got up and got out of that gate every day.
That's interesting, because most people do the exact opposite. Most people will, they'll stay in bed, they'll crawl under the covers, they'll get out the tub of ice cream, they'll do all of these things. It's almost a little bit like you're feeling bad for yourself, and you're saying what you really need to do is you need to get up, you need to show up. So you get out of bed, you get yourself put together so that, you appear
right,
like you're in charge of your own destiny and what's going to happen next. It's not, oh my goodness, my whole world hung on this one person and now I can't function.
And it's easy. It is so easy to do. If you haven't gone through something to that extent, whatever it is, because everybody goes through something, but you really can't relate in a way. I had all the people on the outside that would say, why didn't you do this? Or you should have done this, or, whatever. But unless you're in the arena, they say, right, you don't understand what's going on, or how it works, or you have to deal with the emotional aspect, not only the physical aspect of losing everything and all that, but the emotional aspect that comes around with it. Because that's coming. You got to deal with that too. So those are things that just like I knew if I could work on myself and just focus on myself, that eventually everything else would kind of fall into place. And it is an eventually, because it doesn't happen. We want it to happen like tomorrow. I want this to happen quickly, and it might not happen quickly, but eventually things will fall back into place and you'll be able to move out of that space that you're in.
It's interesting, because really what you're talking about is maintaining a healthy self-image, and part of that is the physical, getting up, getting dressed, getting ready, putting on the right kind of attitude and the right kind of face. Because really what happens out in the world, it's interesting, is you think you've got all of these supporters, and then what you end up finding out is there's a whole lot of people that are really watching you to see if you're going to fall apart. What is Kim really made of now that she's out there on her own? How is she gonna show up? Did you find that you had people that were big supporters and had your back, but then you also had people that you thought maybe did and really didn't?
I really didn't have much support. Okay, so when we had gone through this divorce process, and like I said before, that we had two prominent businesses in the community. So within our small community, it was pretty public of what was going on. And I think I had the impression, or I thought, that I would have more support than I did. I didn't have much support, and I mean like barely any. I had my father, who stood by my side and would not leave me. My dad was there. He was my support system. As far as like the rest of my family, no. And like one or two friends, and that's about it. So that was, like I said, in the face of loss, it was just like compounding. There was more and more and more. Now you don't have support. So I had to learn to be, my own support system, because I don't have anything else. Those are all things that you learn. And then, and as you move through it, you look back and you want to give yourself a pat on the back, like, wow, look what I just went through, and look how I did this. I didn't have anybody supporting me or holding my hand or giving me anything, or, I had to like get through that myself, and I did it. And now I can look back and say, wow, I'm proud of myself. I did that. That was a really tough obstacle, and I got through it. And, but like I said, when lack of support is another real issue for a lot of people, and that's a tough one. So.
Yeah, I would imagine that there's all kinds of emotions that just are just flooding and just running through your brain all the time. I would guess that finding out that you don't have the kind of support, there's shock,
Mhm.
surprise. I would assume that there's got to be a certain element of maybe embarrassed going through the situation, especially if people start digging up dirt or they start asking questions. There's got to be things that are just very, very uncomfortable with that whole thing. So if somebody is going through something similar to this, what would be some tips that you would tell them that they should do to take care of their self-image, to stay whole, and how do they overcome some of these these terrible feelings that they're getting?
Right. And I just want to hit on that. You did hit a keyword, embarrassment, because that's true. I was embarrassed to an extent of, I had built a lot of things to be proud of in my life through this 25 years of being together and being very successful in what we did. So I built a life that I was proud of. And then you find yourself, when you don't have income or a job, you can't sustain a life like that, right? So that where you're living and the car that you are driving and where you start to work. I mean, I was working in the mall, a job that I did not like, but I had to do it. And, so my quality of life had dropped dramatically. And I did find myself like in a space of, gosh, because, you don't have the support, and now you're in this other space. And yeah, I wanted to get out of there quickly. So as far as telling people, how to overcome that, the first step is what I said before. You just got to show up every day. You put one foot in front of the other. You can't look too far ahead, because the road ahead of you looks long. When you feel like you've been pushed back so far, that road looks like, how am I ever going to get there? And that can be overwhelming. So it's one foot in front of the other. And when you keep doing that, I promise you, you will find like things will start to click and come to, and it might take a lot of trial and error. I mean, I was around, I worked, I felt like a teenager going from job to job. I had no college education, so I didn't go to college, right? And here I am at 42 years old. I have no college education, and I have no work experience in the outside world other than what I had with my business. Well, that doesn't translate to when I need to go find a job for income. I was working at just like, lower end jobs to pay my bills. And it was like I was job to job to job. And then finally things started kind of like coming up for me. But it was, again, like I said, you might have to start back here, but just keep showing up every day, keep going one foot in front of the other, and keep meeting new people. But you got to get yourself out there, because the thing you don't want to do is stay home or stay in your spot. And so you've got to get yourself out there. And I, over a period of time, have obviously rebuilt my whole life. I got remarried again. I had another baby, started a business, and that all took time, but I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't start, right? I wouldn't have been able to get from where I was to creating more joy and abundance and happiness in my life if I didn't start somewhere.
Yeah, so that's a testament to your character. So you're saying, okay, so bad thing happened to me. I got thrown some lemons. I'm going to turn this into lemonade, but I'm going to have to start at the bottom. I'm going to have to struggle and scrape and do something that, someone else may think is beneath me, but so what? I'm going to do it anyway, because this is what needs to be done. But in the process of that, you're making new connections. You're starting to, get around other people. You're sharing some of the things that that had happened in your life, and other people are starting to respond to these things in a positive way, saying, hey, Kim, this has happened to me too. I'm so impressed by what you've done. So maybe other people that in your old circle let you down or weren't as supportive, now all of a sudden you're developing a whole new support group of people that are now looking up to you saying, wow, I'm impressed that you were able to, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You were able to do something that would be seemingly beneath you to rebuild your strength again. And now here you are starting your own thing, right? You're starting your own thing on your own, and you're doing something that is probably going to be more impactful than anything you've ever even done in the past, because now you're going to be helping other people that have gone through those struggles understand and learn how to get out of bed, how to take a shower, how to get up and eat, how to take care of themselves, and embrace the idea that it's not only your time, but it's also their time, right? They can do it too. They just need some guidance along the way.
Right. You do. And you do need guidance. Even successful people still need guidance. Like, everybody needs a little bit of guidance. Sometimes when you try to do everything yourself or look at it, it's like I said before, it's overwhelming. There are so many things you need to do. So you got to kind of just narrow that down. And it does help to have someone have someone kind of guide you a little bit. And I wish I had that. So my role now, what I want to do for women is be that person that I didn't have when they're going through a difficult time, because it's needed. And some of that time could have been eliminated if I would have had a support system, or if I would have had someone kind of just coach me a little bit along the way. I feel like I could have gotten there, maybe not necessarily faster, but I could have eliminated some things that I didn't need to be going through.
Yeah, I know that I found in my own experience that the pressure and the struggle and having things hurt is the catalyst, is what's actually needed in order for you to actually do something about it and get some momentum going. Because if it wasn't that painful, you'd be like, well, it's, I can just kind of keep doing what I'm doing and kind of survive. And that doesn't sound at all like what you did, right? You literally are saying, no, you know what defined me before is not going to define me now. My time is now. I'm going to create something new. And what was what would be a setback for so many other people is really a setup for me to do something much greater with myself. So I want to talk to you about goals just for a second. Probably before, you probably had goals that were tied to your spouse, to your other person. It was kind of like a collective goal.
Right.
And now you're in a space where you're like, well, wait a minute, I can have my own goals. So there's probably a lot of other people that have never had the opportunity to have their own goals or even thought about their own goals. So how has that kind of worked with you, and how would you explain to somebody else how to start to take a look at, hey, what's possible for me?
Right. So when your identity gets wrapped around somebody else, which is extremely common, and not to pass judgment on it, because it's easy to say, don't let that happen. However, in reality, it does happen. So when you're married and you have a family and you're in a home and you're all trying to do things for the betterment of everybody else, a lot of times women kind of get caught up in that role of doing for everyone else and being what somebody else needs them to be. And you don't realize it. Okay. You just act upon it and do it. And if you have a business together that you're working for the goal of the business, so now you start to identify yourself within that. So my business was it was a physical one. It was a martial arts based business, which is all about goal setting and achievement. I was a competitor. I was a professional kickboxer. So I had I won the WKA North American Kickboxing Championship. So I was competing like that. I was teaching and coaching and training and working for everybody else all the time. And I was just all engulfed in this whole identity of someone else's dream. Okay. But not I don't want to put that down to say I didn't enjoy it, because I liked it. There was a lot of good that came out of it. But there was a defining moment, and I remember this clearly. That was my moment of like my eyes opened, like, oh my goodness. I walked in my closet one day, right? So I've got this beautiful closet, all of these like gorgeous name brand clothes, and I'm in there and I'm looking like, I don't even know what I want to wear. I don't know what I like. It started this whole like, I don't know who I am kind of thing. Started to spiral off of me going in the closet looking for something to wear. And it was a huge eye-opening experience for me. Like, I am caught up in someone else's dream and I don't know what I want or what I like. So that was a defining moment, and it's so common. It's very common. So to get out of that, you have to start like, once I was out of the relationship, I didn't know what I liked when I was in the relationship. So now I'm out of it. I still don't know what I like, right? I had to relearn. I had to learn who I am. I had to try different things. I had to, you got to experience things, because if you've never been able to, it's kind of in a way of think for yourself, your own decisions and choices that are, no one else is involved. You got to try a lot of different things. So I was able to do that. And over time it becomes easier. At first it's like anything else that's new. It's a little, you might be resistant to it and it might be a little difficult, but over practicing and getting yourself out there and just trying all these new things, it becomes easier. And then you start to see like, oh, I like this, or I might be, talented or gifted in this area that I never knew I was able to do that. I didn't know I would be good at this because I never had a chance to try it. So I get to experience things like that. And I'm grateful for that now.
One of the things that I know that I found after I passed 50 was that I stopped thinking about all the things that I wanted to add to my life. And I started thinking about all the things that I didn't really enjoy, things that made me anxious, things that I didn't enjoy. So it became about, how do I eliminate things? And by eliminating things that I know I didn't like anymore, all of a sudden you start to discover the core of what you really do like about yourself, or
right,
or what you wanted. And that becomes the key to then figure out how you want to move forward. Now, I do have a question for you about this. And I know this has been true of myself and of my wife. Once your kids have grown, now I know you've got a beautiful baby now, but the first four, once they get to a certain point and you're not coddling them as much and they're off doing their own thing and they're having fun, all of a sudden you're faced with this realization of like, well, wait a minute, what do I like to do? Because my life until that point has been entirely all about them. Right. And now all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not sure, what do I want to do with myself here?
That's when you find a lot of people kind of asking like, what is my purpose? What am I here for? That comes up a lot when your kids are grown, because you have lived your whole life raising these little humans, and now they're up and they're flourishing and they're doing their own thing. And my kids, I don't know how yours are, but they're like, see, I'm off. I'm good now. So that's another tough thing. And whether divorce has nothing to do with that. That would have been here no matter what. I mean, my kids are getting older, and that's a whole nother. So, throughout midlife, I think that's why people used to use the term midlife crisis, right? It's not a crisis. It's a shift in where you were to something else.
Right. It's just part of it. It's just part of the whole thing. So how, I want to talk about this too, because again, every discussion I've had with you has always been really positive about this. Some people, when they're unsure of who they are and what they like and what they don't like, they definitely want to finger point almost, and they get to the point of hate. They get to the point of, I hate the other person, this other person did this to me, and it's all about what this other person is doing instead of, really coming into your own self. How do you deal with staying away from the I hate and it's your thing, it's you that did this to me, and stay focused on developing who you are?
So that space comes from a lack of power within. Okay, so it's when I feel powerless, I'm lashing out, when I don't feel I have the control over myself or the ability to create myself, I look outward, right? And you know, like I said, when you're going through difficult times or whatever they are, it's even the best of the best can get caught up in things like that because it's difficult. So you have to realize that you have the power to create what it is that you want. You have the power to be who you want to be. And many times we don't see, you know, it's hard to see that. I think I told you before, my favorite movie of all time. This is my favorite. It's a young girl that gets caught up in a storm, right? She's caught up in the storm and finds herself in the middle of this tornado and lands in a whole new world. And she's trying to she's disoriented, right? She's in a new place, new things. She doesn't know where she is. And she's trying to get back home. So this path that she has to follow to get to this wizard who apparently knows everything, right? This is the authority figure that knows it all. And when she finally approaches this wizard, she finds out that she's had the power all along. She just had to learn it for herself. And I that is like the greatest message of all time, especially for women. You've got it within you, but it's kind of like it's dormant, right? It's not activated yet. We don't realize it. We don't see it, but it's in there. So sometimes it takes some difficult situations to kind of activate it. Sometimes it takes just somebody else telling us, hey, you can do this. And just like turning on that little seed of belief within. But everybody's got it. And it's just, you just have to believe that you can do it. You know, it's that self-belief and it's working through things and realizing too that it's not, you know, the world isn't perfect and it's never going to be. And the thing that you can control is yourself. So we're never going to be able to control other people, what they do, what they think of us, how they respond to us. None of that is within our control. We would like it to be, but it's not. So the only thing that we can control is how we show up, how we respond, and how we present ourselves. And those are like three big keys that just to focus on that.
So I'd kind of like to close with this. I want anyone who's reading this or listening to this, this podcast. A lot of times, what they need is they just need someone else another set of eyes, right? Or looking through a different set of glasses. And sometimes it really does take someone else to just listen. So if someone else is going through this and they're in that space where they're just disoriented, they can't figure it out, they're just not quite sure what to do, how would somebody reach out to you to just have a conversation, to let you listen to them and maybe help give them some guidance? And then number two, if they wanted to get a copy of your book, Your Time Is Now, how would they go about doing that?
So right now, we're going to reach out to me through my email, kimhernandezcoaching@gmail.com. My website is being developed right now, so that's not up and running yet. But the easiest way is right there through the email, kimhernandezcoaching@gmail. And then we can have, the important thing to do is to have a conversation, and a realistic one, because everybody starts at a different place. So you got to have be self-aware. So we got to figure out where are you realistically starting from? Where's your starting point? What do you want to be? Where do you want to get to? Where do we want to go? So what is our end goal? And all this in between is where we have to strategize, right? So how do I get from point A, where I am today, to point B, where I want to be, all this in between? And that's going to be different for everybody. That looks different. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's, life structure is different, and everybody responds in a different way. So it's not a cookie cutter approach, because everybody has a different response system. What works for one person might not work for another. When I used to coach fighters, I was a coach of amateur and professional kickboxers. So each person in the ring, when they sit down at the end of the round, needs to be coached differently. You can't have the same coaching process for each person, because it doesn't work.
Okay, that's interesting, right? So as a good coach, you have to have the ability to listen and uncover the needs of that person and give them what they need at that moment, not what, not dump a whole bunch of things on them, but give them that one thing that they need that's really going to make a difference for them at that moment.
Yes. So you need to listen, but you also, so a coach's job, number one, a coach is not a therapist, right? So a coach's job is to not provide therapy. A coach's job is to move you from where you are to where you want to be.
Nice.
Right. And sometimes that movement is uncomfortable, right? Yeah. But my job as a coach is to push you. This is where you want to go. Then we have to get here. My job is to help you be successful and where you want to be. And sometimes, depending on the person, that's always, you might get a little kicking and screaming in there sometimes, because it is when you're moving, it can be uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, I would imagine it's the same thing. If you're in a kickboxing match and you're in somebody's corner and they've gotten tagged a few times, it hurts. And there are times when you may not feel like you have anything left in the tank and you don't want to get back up. So what do you say when somebody doesn't want to get back, or they're not sure if they can get back up, but you know that they have it inside of them?
Right.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And I do like that you mentioned that it's not therapy. It is about moving the needle, getting them from where they are now to where they want to be. So it's not, here's a tissue and you cry on my shoulder and
right.
Nothing happens, but here's the action step. If you really want something to change, model what I've done and you'll get yourself out of this mess.
Right. Right. Cool. And it's funny that you say that I had one of my fights. This was I think might have been my first fight. I remember sitting down in the corner. This was after the first round, and my legs were shot. It was the first time I was in the ring. It was the first time I was competing out there. And I was thinking I don't know if I can get back up. My legs were shot. I couldn't feel them. And my coach at the time just said, yes, you can. You can do it. And that's all I needed. I just needed that little boost of, all right, I can do it. And that was it. So sometimes it's not this big, this whole big thing that everybody needs. It might be just one. You might just say just the right thing at just the right time to somebody. And that's all they need to hear. So sometimes I think we think it might be more complicated than it actually is, where someone might think, wow, I need more work than I actually do. Maybe you don't, right?
Yeah. For people who are unfamiliar with that too, a lot of times, especially in competition, the first time you do something like that, you have an adrenaline dump, and sometimes it makes your muscles feel like they just want to shut down. And the coach knows you've done all the conditioning. They know you're in great shape. They know you have everything that you need in order to continue. They just need to make you get past that, that little mental block, or this little bit of a pain that you're going through, to get you back in the saddle again, because they know that once you get through it, you'll be able to be successful with, you'll be able to get the win.
Right. So that was almost like a moment of the coach recognizing, I hear you. Yes. I understand. And that's it. And that's all you need. You heard me? Okay, I'm good. And people do, they want to be heard. They want to be heard.
Yeah. So you're responsible for yourself. And I think the only thing that someone really needs to understand is the value of having a great coach, somebody to be there for you in your corner to help you get through it. And that's really what it's all about, right? So if you're listening to this, really and truly, the title of the book is perfect. Your time is now. So if you need some help in this area, I will make sure that I drop your email address, which is kimhernandezcoaching@gmail.com. I'll put that down in the description. So it'll be a clickable link, so they can go right there and be able to reach out to you if they need some help in that area. So Kim, as always, super excited to have you on as a guest today. I thought this was great, very informative. And I know that it will do worlds of good for people that have heard your message and decide to reach out to you.
All right. Well, thank you. It was fun. I appreciate it.